Hello and welcome to Money Control. Before I introduce today's guest, I want to read a little passage from his book for you. Here's how it goes. The Indian citizen needs to know more about how the military functions in war and peace because they too have a stake in the security and well being of the nation and their opinion matters. My guest today is Seva Medal awardee Major General Ian Cardozo. He's fought in the wars in 1962, 1965, and 1971. And since then, he's told us innumerable stories of the lives of Faujis and their acts of courage in times of need. Welcome to the show, Major General.
Thank you so much, Panpreet.
Excellent. I have so many questions, but first I want to start with, when you joined the army, it was still the early 1950s. India was still a very young, independent nation. What made you want to join the army then, and what was the mood in the army at that time?
I passed out of the NDA in 1957, then went to the Indian Military Academy at Dehradun in 1958, and then the trouble which started with China, after that is a year after I joined the battalion, 1959, and we were moved to the border. But at that time, we still didn't know. I was too young. I was a second lieutenant. I had no idea what war was all about. But it was an adventure. We had to move in a special train all the way from Ambala to the northeast frontier agency. From there, we had to move by road. From there, we had to move to the border. It took 18 days march from the nearest airfield to reach the border post. So it was quite exciting. It was as though we had moved back into history in 1,000 years because we were interacting with warlike tribes, fighting with each other with swords and bows and arrows, spears, daggers, helmets, shields. We couldn't understand where, as though we'd been transported back into history. And there was a case where we heard that an officer had been killed by these tribes because we took them for granted that they are Indian citizens, they are okay, but they were wild tribes. So we had to be very careful. So we had the Chinese in front of us on the border, and we had tribes behind us who had to be careful about. So it was quite an adventure. Every day was an adventure because we were supplied by air, and the dropping zones were about 4,000 feet below us. The planes were circling down on the dropping zone 4,000 feet below us. That high, we were that high. And it was nice. But there was no thought of war as such. In 1959, while we were there, the Dalai Lama came across and with all his entourage. And only then we felt that, well, China is up to some mischief. They've taken over Tibet. And we didn't understand at that time, but India did not even protest. It should have taken up this matter with the UN to say this is not on, but we kept quiet. And lots of things happened thereafter. So there was no real thought about war at that time, 1959. But we had a Home Minister, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, who during this time had seen China for what it was. And he told the Prime Minister that you are taking China to be a friend. China is not a friend, it is more of an enemy. And he listed out all that they had done. Unfortunately, he passed away in November 1950. So Prime Minister Nehru had nobody to oppose him. And he carried on with the policy of appeasement to China, which landed us into trouble subsequently.
Right. I want to talk a lot more about the 1965 war, but I'm going to jump forward to 1971, which you've talked about in a previous book, which came out a couple of years ago, and especially now with the unrest in Bangladesh. Can you tell us now, when you look back at that war that you fought in 1971, what are the thoughts that go through your head?
Well, I was doing my staff college course in Wellington when the trouble broke out on the border. and the course was terminated, and we were told to go and join our units. The battalion had already joined, was on the border, and it had already fought two battles by the time I reached, Battle of Atgram and Battle of Ghazipur. Very tough and ferocious battles where my battalion, the 4th Battalion, the 5th Gorkha Rifles, launched the last kukri attack in modern military history, and that made the Pakistanis very apprehensive because they didn't like the thought of losing their heads. Kukri attack means we decimated them with the Gorkha knife, the kukri. And then after that, the battalion, I was not there, launched a second attack on a place called Ghazipur. So by this time, although we had entered the war with just 18 officers, by this time we had lost 3 officers killed and 4 officers wounded. And so the CEO was trying to get to grips with the battalion and trying to reorganize the companies and the men. When the corps commander, General Sagat Singh, said, send the Gurkhas to capture Sylhet. So the commanding officer said, sir, is this the only battalion in the corps? I'm just getting to terms with my losses. I'm trying to reorganize my companies. Give me a chance to reorganize the battalion for my next task. But the corps commander said, nothing doing. The brigade which is holding Sylhet has moved for the defense of Dhaka. Sylhet is empty. I want you to go and occupy it immediately. I'm sending you there by chopper. So the battalion, there's a limit to what you can say, and this is war. So we did as we were told, and we launched the first heliborne attack of the Indian Army for the capture of Sylhet. What we did not know was that the brigade, now the listeners will not know what is the battalion and what is the brigade, so I'll explain. A battalion consists of 1,000 men. A brigade consists of 3 battalions. So how many men?
3,000.
3,000. So the brigade which was holding Sylhet and the Sylhet garrison had not moved. Worse to come was that it was reinforced by another brigade. So how many now? 6,000 plus the garrison, and we had no idea. When a battalion is para-dropped or heli-lifted behind enemy lines, the teaching is that it has to be reinforced within 48 hours for the simple reason that there will be many casualties, there will be difficulty in casualty evacuation, there will be diminished ammunition, there will be diminished food and water, and so within 48 hours it has to be reinforced. We were not reinforced for 9 days and 9 nights. We fought on our own. But the CO, the commanding officer, a very brave officer, Lieutenant Colonel Arun Harolikar, he understood that it would be difficult for us to be reinforced. And so he had a conference with the officers and the JSOs, and he said that, look, we are going to capture this place, which is well behind enemy lines. We have been told that we'll be reinforced, but I have my doubts. So we will carry more ammunition and we will carry more grenades. We will not carry food and water. We will manage with what we have on site. And we will not take our equipment, that means no blankets. It was winter, it was cold. So we were without blankets. It was very cold. We had no food except one chak. A chak is a handful of shakarpara and a water bottle. How long could that last us? It could have lasted us with a lot of economy displayed maximum for 2 days, 48 hours. But we were never reinforced. So we made do with water from muddy ponds and suffered on account of that. And we scrabbled for grain from abandoned huts. And that's how we survived. But something happened at that time which maybe helped us. I think it did, because as I explained to you, A battalion consists of 1,000 men, and a brigade consists of 3 battalions. So the Indian government had allowed foreign correspondents to accompany our troops into the war zone. And so a British correspondent, because we had nothing to hide, they marched with us, they ate with us, they slept alongside. And one of them, who made a broadcast on the BBC to say that a brigade of Gurkhas has landed at Sylhet, whereas we were only half a battalion, not even a battalion. So we knew the Pakistanis were listening. We knew that, and we heard it ourselves. So the CEO and I decided to pretend that we were a brigade. We pushed our companies forward outside and made our dispositions as though it were a brigade. We didn't know whether it succeeded or not, but a Pakistani patrol had a we had a battle with them very close to our defenses, and we decided that maybe they've come to know that we are not a brigade, we are a battalion. So let us close up, and give them a good fight. If we have to die, let's die and give them a bloody nose. So we did that, but apparently we have succeeded because after about on the 15th of August, sorry, 15th of December, 1971, 2 Pakistani officers came with white flags to say they wanted to surrender. My commanding officer felt that if they got to know that we were so few on the ground, they might change their mind. So he said, "Go back. I have no orders to accept your surrender. Go back and continue the fight." But then they said, "Can we talk to the brigade commander?" Then we understood that we had managed to bluff them that we were a brigade. So we said, "These are the brigade commander's orders." The brigade commander said, "You come tomorrow at the same time, at the same place. We will get back to higher headquarters, take orders to accept your surrender." And the next day they came and they to surrender. And we told our brigade commander, for goodness sake, please come and take the surrender. So he came in a chopper. The Pakistani brigade commander said, "Is chopper mein kaun aaya hai?" The commander said, "I have come." He said, "Are you not here?" He says, "No, I'm not here. Where are you?" "I'm 100 miles away." "Then what is here?" He said, "It is only one Gurkha battalion, and that too at half strength." They could not believe what they were listening. They could not believe what they were hearing. There was a lot of murmuring amongst them. They couldn't believe what was being said. And we couldn't believe when the surrender took place. 3 brigadiers, Pakistani brigadiers, 2 full colonels, 170 officers, 290 JSOs, and 8,000 Pakistani troops surrendered to us. By that time, we were just 352. That's the
So
story
we
of
know, right. You won the battle at Sylhet, and Bangladesh was formed subsequently. Now we've
yeah.
sort of seen, Mujibur Rahman was elected to head the state at the time. We've sort of seen a little bit of unrest now with Sheikh Hasina leaving Bangladesh, etc. Do you think back to that time, especially with the current political scenario in Bangladesh?
I don't see the point in looking back in the sense we did what we did. We fought for the right cause. We fought for the rights of the East Pakistanis to get independence. We liberated East Pakistan. Bangladesh was formed. And we could not have done that without the help of the Mukti Bahini as well as the people of East Pakistan. You cannot conquer a country unless the people are with you. And our cause was just. So it was a great number of battles were fought all over. But in military history, this is the shortest war. In 13 days, we liberated a country, and a new country was born.
In 1971, you also suffered a personal loss. Your leg had to be amputated during the Battle of Sylhet. That also became the moment where you also turned into a writer and a chronicler of army history. Can you tell us about why you write, about these battles that happened so long ago?
See, as I mentioned earlier, what you read out earlier, The, the man in the street has the stake, he and his family has the stake in the security of India. Their voices must be heard, but their voices must be also logical and knowledgeable. Therefore, they need to know about how the military functions and what it does to keep them safe. But who reads military history? Military history is not everybody's cup of tea. So I felt that I should rewrite military history in the form of short stories. And everybody loves a story. And my book on 1971 has done extremely well. It has been reprinted three times, reprinted three times, printed four times within a year and a half of its release. And people are asking questions, and people ask questions because they want to know. And therefore, it is good that I felt that I wrote that book. I've written 1965 also. And there's a lot of things we make mistakes. To say that the army is a holy cow and that everybody is a saint is not correct. The army is made up of people from the length and breadth of the country. We have all sorts of people, and we have all sorts of thoughts, all sorts of strategies and tactics, whatever. Uh, Maybe we made some mistakes. Maybe we could have done better, but we need to learn from those mistakes. In the army, there's a saying: the best soldier learns from the mistakes of others. The good soldier learns from his own mistakes, and the bad soldier never learns. So we need to be in the image of the best soldier and learn from what is happening in Ukraine, what is happening in Gaza, what is happening with Hamas, with Israel, what happened in 62, what happened in 48, 49, what happened in 65, what happened in 71, what happened in 1999, and make sure we don't make those mistakes again. I'm full of hope that we will deliver whatever happens because the army is very resilient. It is very, I wouldn't say it is powerful, it is resilient, it has got high values, it is based on honor, it is based on love. With all these values, we can't keep an army, India's army down. We will do extremely well in whatever challenges come our way. But we need to know what happened so that we don't make those mistakes again. And the man in the street also needs to know more about the military so that he also joins. He has a stake in the security of India. His children have a stake in the security of India. And they must form part of our army, our navy, and air force. And for that, they need to be told about what happened in these wars, what we did. There are brilliant stories of courage and bravery and honor and truth and love, sacrifice, which will motivate, inspire the younger generation to do what is necessary, not only in the armed forces, but in whatever profession they choose. They need to put always country first. As long as they put country first, then they will be the best country in the world. I didn't say the most powerful country in the world. I didn't say the richest country in the world. I said the best country in the world. And the best country means that everybody will be happy, they will be empowered, they will be content, and they will be proud of India. So that's why I write.
We are talking exactly 59 years to the month since the 1965 war in Pakistan, which took place between 5th August and 23rd September in 1965. Can you tell us a little bit about why you wrote it, and especially the first story that you sort of begin with, which is a combat that happened right over IIT Kharagpur at around 10:30 a.m. in the morning, where the professors and students had to come out to see what was happening?
Yeah, you see, I, when we fight the war, we fight uh, jointly Army, Navy, Air Force. So my story is about Army, Navy, Air Force. 71 was Army, Navy, Air Force. 65 was only Army and Air Force. Why? Because the Navy was kept out of the war. And the Navy, probably nobody, very few know that Indonesia at that time was claiming that why is this ocean called the Indian Ocean? It should be called the Indonesian Ocean. And why are the Andaman and Nicobar Islands part of India? It should be part of Indonesia. and we will make an attempt to capture some parts of the Nicobar Islands. So the Indian Navy was diverted to the Bay of Bengal. When the war broke out over the air and on the ground, the Navy felt left out, and they said, "We want to take part in this war on the western seaboard as well." But Mr. Chavan, the Raksha Mantri, and the Prime Minister said, "No, we have enough on our hands. Please cool off, and you will not launch any offensive operations on the western seaboard, and you will not go beyond the parallel of Dwarka, Kutch." And so the Navy was kept out, and they were very unhappy about it. But it had a good outcome because the officers at that time felt very upset, not only that they were kept out, but the government never explained as to why they were kept out, and it was the government who kept them out. And Admiral Nanda, a future chief, said at that time, when he was flag officer commanding the fleet in Bombay, he said, "I know Karachi like the back of my hand. I was born there, and given the chance, I will set Karachi on fire." And that is what he did. He used the missile boats. We destroyed that destroyer, we destroyed a destroyer, we destroyed a minesweeper, we damaged an oil tanker, we sank two ammunition ships, and he set the Kiamari oil fields on fire, which burned for 1 week, 7 days and 7 nights. So Admiral Nanda carried out whatever he said he would. And Pakistan Navy refused to fight. They went into Karachi, bolted inside, and refused to fight. And the great thing was that a naval blockade was established outside Karachi, which means no ship could enter Karachi harbour without permission from the Indian government. For a while. After that, we said, okay. But the point is that it was a great naval victory which people don't know about. I've written about it in my book, The Sinking of INS Kukri. I've written about it in 71 War. So people need to know what a great job the Navy did in 71, which I hope when they read the book, they will come to know exactly what happened.
Right, but in 1965 they were kept out of the war, but the Air Force had a chance to show off a little bit, and some of it happened with a great audience by the IIT Kharagpur students and professors.
Yeah, the thing is that, yes, it was a great battle fought over the IIT campus. The professors were trying to keep the attention of their students, but there was a lot of noise outside. The windows were rattling, and the students were getting sort of disoriented and disturbed. So it was 5 minutes to break, tea break, so it was around 10 o'clock. So the classes were closed, and all the professors and the students streamed out, and they were astonished to find a battle going on above their heads and above IIT campus. There were two hunters versus four saber jets, and it was a great battle because one pilot, a flight lieutenant, Alfred Cooke, he destroyed one saber jet. He destroyed another, but unfortunately, it sort of fell inside East Pakistan. So he didn't wasn't given credit for it at that time. And when he got to time behind the third one, uh, he pressed the button of his trigger, but he had run out of ammunition, which was very uh, sad. But all four, one more was knocked out by his wingman. So four saber jets, one destroyed, one claimed destroyed, which was seen falling into East Pakistan. One more destroyed by the wingman, and one got away.
You write in your book that they were flying so low that the gun camera caught trees and foliage, in the
That's right.
path of the plane.
That's right. You know, in the army, in the armed forces, uh, you have sergeants in the Air Force and who are in charge of discipline. And although Alfred Cook was an officer, the sergeant said, "Sir, you have gone very low. I will have to report you to the commanding officer. You have done something which is not allowed." He had come so low that his wings were full of parts of trees and bushes. But it was a fantastic fight, and That's the first story of that book, 65 War.
It sounds amazing to actually have like this almost filmy war happening over your campus, and bits of the airplane that was blasted sort of falling onto the campus and students going over to collect it. And that battle completes exactly 59 years on the 7th of September this year.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Excellent. You have an excellent memory for dates, names. Tell us how how you managed to stay so fit. You're 87 now.
I'm 87 now, but I learned something from my 8-year-old son when he was 8 years old. He said, Dad, I want to write my book of dreams. And so I encouraged him to do that. And I thought, let me take a lesson from my own son. Let me keep a diary of important events that happened. Not that I kept it very properly, but, and also I've been thinking of these stories all these years. If it took me 18 months to 2 years to write the book, I've been thinking of these stories all these years. So they've been going on in my mind all the time. So they've never been away from me. They've been with me, but now that they're in the book, they've left me now and they've gone into history, those stories.
Right. Perfect. Since your memory is so sharp still, let me ask you a question about, India's history a little bit, because for some of us who weren't born at the time, it's difficult to imagine. Do you remember the day that India got independence and the months leading up to it, including the partition, etc.? You were in Bombay at the time.
Yeah,
What were the dinner table conversations like at the time?
well, I was just 10 years old and I was very excited by the roads, the whole of Colaba, Bombay, Dobitala, Bandra. Everyone was on the streets shouting. I don't know whether we realized what independence meant. Maybe they did, but I didn't understand what independence meant, except that I knew that now in my dad's office, I could use the staircase meant only for the whites. We could use toilets meant only for the whites. Discrimination was over. Schools which were meant only for the whites were now open to everyone. So that bit of discrimination I understood. But I was fascinated by the trams and the buses all lit up with bulbs going up and down the streets and everybody shouting Jai Hind, Independence Mubarak, and the ships in the harbor of Bombay were all lit up, firing rockets. And it was a very joyous time. What happened subsequently in J&K and partition was very far away from us, and I didn't really know what was happening. I was too young to understand what was happening in J&K and what was happening in partition. Those horrors were meant for my classmates and course-mates who came to us in the NDA and told us all about it. But in Bombay, we were far away from partition.
Mm. Thank you so much for sharing your book and your memories with us, sir. This has been so informative.
Thank you so much, Alfred. I'm glad to have
Thank
shared with you. I hope, see, the reason why I write is I want to be read. And I want to be read because I want people to know what happened. And people cannot know what happened unless they read these stories. And I put them in a way that is interesting. Everybody loves a story. And I hope people will read what happened 65, 71. And if I'm still around, I will also write about 48, 49, 62, and 99, God willing.
Perfect. Thank you again for your time. And thank you to Money Control viewers for joining us with this conversation. We've talked so much about Major General Ian Cardozo's memories of the 1965 and 71 wars. We look forward to reading what he has to say about 48, 49, and 62 as well in the future. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Karthi. God bless you. Take care. Thank you.